Friends, today's NRI Samay program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial free, and today's show is pre-recorded. If you have a question for the guest, please send an email to nrisamay@gmail.com. We will follow up with the guest and find the answer for you. Thank you for your support.
We have a prominent social scientist and now social activist Bela Bhatia with us this evening. She has worked in many states of India and also outside India for peace and for social studies and is an activist also. These days, Bela is in a lot of news because she is working in Bastar of Chhattisgargh, where some social elements who are probably working with instigation from authorities, especially police department, they are working against her and who are trying to throw Bela out of Bastar, blaming that she is a Naxal supporter, and they had distributed posters or pamphlets. They had demonstrated outside her house. So it is a high time we get to hear from Bela, but for our listeners, I would like to discuss a few things before I come down to Bastar. And it is very, very interesting work which Bela had been doing over long years. And I'm very, very sure that our people, those who are listening to this conversation, this interview, they would be greatly benefited. And at the end of this hour, they would have a greater social understanding of Indian affairs. Bela, this is Sunil Kumar on behalf of NRI Samay Radio. I welcome you this evening and I am so thankful for time and the trouble you have taken. Good evening, Bela.
Good evening. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Bela, for our listeners, those who are not familiar with you, and since you are working with the deprived sections, democratically deprived or economically deprived, I would really like to know in a minute that what kind of a social background have you come from?
Well, I was born in a Hindu family. Much later, I, converted to Buddhism, which was my own choice because I'm against the caste system, and Hinduism, as we know, is intricately linked with the caste system.
Yeah.
So in 2003, I converted to Buddhism, but I was born in a Hindu family, and this was a middle-class family. My father was an engineer, and my mother was a teacher.
Bela, why most of your work is around deprived people, deprived communities, poverty? Did you do it by choice or it just happened?
No, I think it is a deliberate choice in some ways. Well, I'm no different than any of us. I think we all make these choices along the way. I think, this is part of the conversation that we have with ourselves about what this life is about, how should we live it, what should we do so that it is meaningful to us. The answer need not be the same for everybody, and I think it really depends on each one of us. Now, in my case, for me, this is my life is in some ways part of my answer to myself about how I should live this life and what is meaningful to me.
Bela, I was going through your work and I would like to start it with the Iraq front where you people had done some peace initiatives. Could you tell me in brief about it, say around 2-3 minutes on this?
Yes, sure. So this was in late 1990 that peace activists who were mainly based in London, they were feeling that they should do some kind of a direct action in order to communicate to the governments, their own governments, because this was mostly people from the West who were part of the Allied forces, who were gaining strength and organizing themselves to wage this war in Iraq. So it is around that time that the peace activists felt that they wanted to do some kind of direct action in the region. And I have some peace friends, and as a result, I was also invited to be part of the initial group of 7 who was negotiating with the authorities, both the Iraqi authorities and the Saudi Arabian government in London. And the idea was, the embassies in London, and the idea was at the time to try to set up a peace camp on the border between Iraq and Saudi Arabia, mainly to communicate that the ordinary person in not only the states that were waging the war, but in all the other countries as well, they are against the war and against these wars, and they want to want to give the message to their own governments as well as to the United Nations that we should try to further political dialogue in order to resolve our differences and not wage wars which ultimately affect the people, whoever they may be, on any side.
I see.
So,
how long this attempt was going on?
So this was around, I think this was between October to December 24th. We were, in London, and we were negotiating with these authorities. Then I think it was sometime in the first week of December or the second week of December when the Iraqi authorities agreed to entertain us.
I see.
And, they invited our advance team to Iraq to speak with the authorities there. The Saudis did not entertain us at all.
I see.
So then I was part of the advance team, and we went to Iraq and we negotiated with the authorities there to give us, to allow us to, pitch our tents. Ideally, we would have liked to be on the no person's land between Iraq and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
But Iraq naturally, could not do that. All they could, to further our effort, they agreed to, allow us to be on Iraqi soil. But this was 2 kilometers from the no person's land. And this was a place called Judai Idat Arar. This is on the way to Medina. So we had set up a camp there, a peace camp there.
Which year you had said it was?
So this was late 1990, and till that time the war was imminent. It had not yet broken out.
Yeah.
And we were people, in the camp itself, we were people from around 20 countries, and more than 200 people, sort of came and went in the camp. So the camp was set up on Christmas Day, on December 24th, we had set our base there.
I see.
And then after, as part of the advance team, I was there. And then after the camp was set up, I actually came back to India for a very short time, around 2 weeks or so, with the idea to try to communicate to the Indian people about what was happening and to try to get peace activists from here, because we were naturally not wanting it to be just effort of Western countries, but also countries like ours.
Could you find some support in India for this?
Oh yes, yeah. It was quite heartening that in those 2 weeks, the support that I got, because that time I didn't even have an office to work from, and in those, there was NGO called Lokayan in Delhi, so they gave me their office to work from. So literally I was based there for a few days, and making calls to various persons from there and so on. And then from there, I made a quick trip to Calcutta, to Chennai, and in each place, like in Calcutta, for example, I went to meet Mother Teresa that time because we were wanting a written statement from her.
I see.
In support. And in Kerala also, Kerala, Chennai, all these places, one sort of spoke about it.
Yeah.
So, in that short time, around 16 people were ready to go. And in that short time, you won't believe it, but we had to organize the passports as well, because most of the Indians did not have the the passports.
Yeah.
And it was quite something to see how the Indian authorities, like the Indian government, was very supportive also,
Yeah.
and they issued temporary passports to. I mean, most of our team included people who needed passports, so they were issued temporary passports for 6 months, valid for 6 months.
I see.
Yeah. So altogether, 16 people then had gone from India.
I see.
Yeah. And we were part of, just to mention, because I've not mentioned it so far, that we were part of this team called the Gulf Peace Team.
Really?
That is what it was called then, and we had set up this camp on the border.
All the girls team from India are from all over?
No, the Gulf Peace Team was from all over. I mean, the Indian contingent became part of that larger effort.
I see.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about one thing. You people had taken so much of interest in Iraq. And when United States and its friends, they attacked Iraq in recent past after that.
Right.
So what did you feel about it? And could you people do anything, any campaign online or otherwise? Because you had been making efforts for Iraq. So this was a time when Iraq was even more dangerously attacked.
Yes. See, the thing is that some of us, like I personally have not been able to be continuously involved with Iraq after I came back to India. I mean, I have sort of in a secondary kind of a way, but my primary work has been on India.
Yeah.
But the rest of our team members who were from, like a very large number was from the United States. And United Kingdom and other countries like Germany and Spain and France and so on. Now, especially our friends who were from the States, they formed an organization called Voices in the Wilderness.
I see.
And there's a very prominent activist called Kathy Kelly. I mean, Kathy was part of the Gulf Peace Team, and then later she was one of those who founded the Voices in the Wilderness.
Yeah.
And continuously, like for literally decades afterwards, they were campaigning against the sanctions, which continued in Iraq, and then what was happening in Iraq.
Yeah.
I mean, Kathy herself has also later worked in Afghanistan and so on.
Yeah.
And besides Kathy, I mean, and then of course the others, as I said, the other members of the Gulf Peace Team in the States.
Yeah.
In the UK also, Voices in the Wilderness opened another chapter, in the UK.
Yeah.
And it was very, like when I was later doing a PhD in Cambridge, I used to also go for the Monday, like they used to demonstrate every Monday. I mean, even though this was a very small group of activists, something like 8 or 10 activists,
I see.
they used to demonstrate every Monday against the sanctions, the ongoing sanctions. So that was quite something to see, like, that kind of commitment and over, so many years.
I remember the mayor of London, he had led a huge and great march against attack.
Right.
And it was probably one of the biggest marches in London.
Yes.
Yeah. Could we move over to Gujarat? I read you had done some work in Gujarat. Could you tell us about it in a minute?
Sure. In Gujarat, the work that I had done was actually before my involvement in the Gulf Peace Team. So this was when I was a fresh MA. I had done my MA from Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Bombay in social work. So after I finished my MA, the only thing that was clear in my mind was that I wanted to work in a rural area. And that time, my parents were living in Baroda. So amongst the places that I was looking out, I sort of also visited the tribal areas of Gujarat, and I found an organization which, I was interested to join. This was called the NRI Samay. This was a trade union of agricultural laborers and marginal farmers. And they were basically organizing the local Adivasis, Dalits, and poorer communities which belong to the, like in Gujarat, we have a category called the other backward castes, OBCs.
Yeah.
So they were organizing them, like the Shramjeevis basically, for land. So I joined them, and besides NRI Samay, I was also a member of a small NGO called Setu Center for Social Knowledge and Action in Ahmedabad.
I see.
So 5 years I had spent, this is prior to the Gulf Peace Team.
I see. And I could read some of your work done in Bihar.
Yes.
What was that?
Well, after my Iraq days, and then after Iraq, actually, there was a spell also in Palestine, where
really?
where we had organized, because once we were in the Middle East, we understood the politics of the region much better. And we were people, I'll just briefly speak about Palestine before coming to Bihar.
Yeah.
So what happened that time is that we really felt that we cannot go from this region without saying something about Palestine.
Yeah.
And we were people from 20 countries. So what happened is, as far as the Gulf Peace Team is concerned, that the war broke out on the 16th of January, and then we were evacuated in late January by the Iraqi authorities.
Yeah.
And then we were brought to Baghdad, and from there we were moved to Amman. Now, after that, many of our members felt that our mission was over and that we should return back to our countries and continue to do anti-war campaigning from there.
I see.
Some of us stayed back, and we felt that, we could continue working. So one work which we had taken up was to continue to break the sanctions, because that was the killer, actually.
Yeah.
And, so many children were dying and so on. So we actually took, food and medical supplies inside Iraq. So we did that work. So that time we called ourselves the Gulf Relief Team.
I see.
And then after that, alongside actually, this was around March 1991, that our first team went into Palestine.
I see.
And that time we organized a peace walk from Jericho to from Amman to Jerusalem.
I see.
And that time we were a small group, because many of our members, as mentioned, they had returned to their own country. So we were a group of around 20-30 persons.
Yeah.
And we were that time arrested in Jericho and kept in jail for a little while, and not allowed to reach Jerusalem. Now this was 1991.
Okay.
So that made us feel the power of nonviolent resistance and making that statement from the international community.
Yeah.
So the next year, which was 1992, was the 25th year of the occupation.
I see.
So that time we really felt that we needed to do something, for Palestine and for, human rights and peace in the region. So we decided to return. So from January to June that year, that is 1992, I had gone back as one of the main organizers to organize. The idea that we had was to organize a 6-day walk, the same 6 days when the occupation happened, which is the first
on its 25th anniversary.
On the 25th anniversary.
I see.
So that time we were able to mobilize and the idea was to have Israelis walking with us and the Palestinians walking with us.
Wonderful.
And the international community. So that was a very good organization. Unfortunately, and we were many people, like more than, at least 300 or so people. What happened is that the Israelis did not allow the Palestinians to, participate.
Join.
So that was the first thing. And then after that, they allowed the Israeli peace activists. But then we were all stopped at the Green Line, because from Green Line we were supposed to enter. So we walked through Israeli territory, and we demonstrated outside prisons, and
where Palestinians were kept.
Where Palestinians were kept, and also some Israelis, because that was something which we discovered, which was quite motivating for me, which even applies in our context here, which is that, some of the Israeli Defense Force persons,
they were not in favor of their own governmental action.
Exactly. And they were saying that we are for the defense of Israel, not for an occupation. We are not here to occupy others. So there were some of these soldiers were, they had formed a organization called Yesh Gavul.
I see.
So Yesh Gavul, there were many Yesh Gavul prisoners also inside the prisons.
I see.
So we were demonstrating outside the prisons, and our main slogan was respect human rights, end the occupation, and two states for a peaceful future.
I see.
So then we were stopped at the Green Line, and we were arrested, and this time they came in, there was a lot of force, and they were on horseback and so on, and more than around I think 200 some people quoted arrest that time. And we were distributed in different prisons, for something like 5-6 days. And there was a date given to us. I remember it was the 15th of July, and we were told that by the 15th of July we have to move out.
So you had experienced the Israeli prison.
Yes.
Wonderful,
yes.
Wonderful. We went to Gaza 4 years back.
Right. Yes.
As a part of Asia to Gaza peace caravan.
Right.
And though we had lots of threats from Israeli authorities, and a similar caravan just 5 months before that was attacked by Israeli military.
Yes.
And 12 people had died, and we had visited their graveyard in Turkey.
Right.
But somehow there was a huge difference, and Israel could not probably dare to attack this caravan. Because it had 55 Indians.
Right.
And India is the largest importer of Israeli anything.
Yes.
India, as you know, is importing more than half of the Israeli exports of every kind.
Okay.
So that was the reason why Israel did not attack our caravan, and we somehow could make it to Gaza for 4 days.
Yes.
After lots of efforts.
Yes.
So, in the middle of questions and your wonderful replies, I could not resist the temptation of making this a small glory we had also achieved.
Yeah, no, this is quite something. This is very important. And, I was that time witness to the change in Indian policy vis-a-vis Israel. Because the first time round, that Amman to Jerusalem walk when we were organizing, as an Indian, it was so difficult for me to get a visa. Because India had not recognized Israel.
I know. There were two countries, South Africa and Israel.
Exactly.
And Indian passports used to carry a line that this passport is not valid for South Africa and Israel.
Exactly. And you won't believe the next time, that is by the next year. So the first time, according to their rule, Israeli government officer had to stand guarantee for me. Somehow one got some connection, and she was related to an academic one knew, and that way one could get that help from her. But the next year, by that time, India had recognized Israel. So you see, so that was one shift one really saw happen.
One major shift. India had always been I remember from Gandhi's writings. India had always been one of the greatest supporters of Palestinians in their cause.
Exactly.
And even Gandhi had been very critical of Israelis.
Yes.
So it was a major shift when India had recognized Israeli.
Yes.
And Palestinians were very much disappointed.
Yes. And that is the love that one found there. Because they really love Indians. You must have experienced that too. Where they called us Habibi and all that. No, so they really love Indians. And I think it is because of not only the similarities in our cultures, but it is because I think of the political positioning that of India. No, which has it's really not only sad, but it is shameful that India has changed so much.
That's right. It's a pity.
Yeah.
And Bela, let us come
Yes.
to Bihar and your work there. I would like
Right.
to know about. I mean, Palestinian discussion is so much more interesting to me
Yes.
and dear to
Yes.
my heart.
Yes.
But somehow there are so many other subjects we have to cover, other issues.
Sure.
So, Bihar, what was your work in Bihar? Could you tell us?
So, Bihar, I was born in Bihar. So I had a certain kind of a connection with Bihar. Like for first 12 years of my life, I was there. So I was witness to the kind of poverty. I mean, as a child, what I remember, the kind of poverty that was there. That, somehow stayed in my mind even when I was working as a activist in Gujarat, in the tribal areas, which were the poorer areas of Gujarat. Still, I somehow always felt that, Bihar was in a worse state.
Yeah.
So therefore, when I left, the idea was in some ways to return to Bihar. And this involvement with Iraq and Palestine happened actually by chance. So then after that, I thought of I also wanted to study some more because I wanted to understand ideology-led movements.
Yeah.
So, like my work in Savarkantha had been, within the democratic rights framework, and we had organized people around, the notion of rights and so on. But we were not part of any party as such.
Yeah.
So I wanted to study, movements which were that way very clearly linked with particular parties, and they had waged struggles on the ground. So in that connection, then I had started, as I said, I wanted to study movements, and I decided to do this PhD and took this as a subject, for my dissertation. And I studied the Naxalite movement in then central Bihar, so 5 districts of which are now South Bihar. So
Which year was that?
So this was 95, 96.
I see.
2 years I spent in the field, basically looking into the work of 3 Naxalite factions, which is CPI-ML Liberation, CPI-ML Party Unity, and the Maoist Communist Center.
Yeah.
So these 3, I looked into their work in 5 districts.
Yeah. So now I think with the mention of Naxal movement and the Naxal organizations and
Yes.
ideological movements,
Yes.
I would like to bring our discussion to Bastar.
Okay.
When did you come to Bastar first, or when did you get to know about what was going on here, and why did you come to Bastar?
Well, actually, I should have come to Bastar earlier, because when I was working in 95, 96 in Bihar, I was often told that, by those who were members of these parties, that I should go and see what is happening in Dandakaranya. So that was always mentioned as an area where, they were experimenting with many things and so on. So in any case, I did not come in those intervening years. But what happened is that in 2005, when the Salva Judum started, and we started hearing about all these horror stories, about many people being killed and, people being displaced from their, from their homes. That is when, as a scholar, who had been studying the Naxalite movement and the state response to the Naxalite movement, it was of interest to me.
Yeah.
Because what they were doing in Bastar was something that they had not done by they I mean the Indian state, that they had not done in Bihar or in Andhra Pradesh.
I see.
Because after Bihar, I had also studied the movement in Telangana. Now, what I found was that in Bihar, the primary state response was in the shape of, the caste senas, caste-based private armies and the massacres.
Ranveer Sena and other private armies.
Right. So there's a parallel history along with the history of the Naxalite movement in Bihar, you have a parallel history of many caste senas. So Ranbir Sena is the latest, but many caste senas before that, and all of whom were basically, they did all these massacres, in some ways with support of the the ruling parties, but it was not that way like Salwa Judum, in the sense that that was a kind of a private mobilization by this respective dominant caste.
That's right.
But the state was sort of turning, they would not ban them, they would not be nabbed, and so on. So the nexus between the caste senas and the government was clear, and also the political parties also was quite clear. Kisi na kisi, some relationship with some MLA. MP,
but then Bihar government wasn't blamed for sponsoring these groups.
Exactly. That's the most important point, that they continued for 30 years. I mean, as I said, there's a parallel history. And there are many massacres that they have done. Terrible massacres.
I remember.
And so on, like Belchi, where Indira Gandhi went.
Indira Gandhi went on elephant. I could still remember those pictures.
I mean, and macabre stories, like, you may recall about how Dalits were literally sometimes thrown into the fire. And I mean, really terrible ones, including just to mention the latest one of Ranbir Sena, I mean, which became very prominent because of 58, deaths, killing of 58 Dalits in Lakshmipur Bate village.
Friends, if you liked today's show, please go to youtube.com/NRI Samay and click on the subscribe button. You will get notified every time we publish a new show. And you can also like us on our social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.